into this unit as well.
Okay.
Now, the main aim of studying, I'll go back to the concept that I was explaining. The main aim of studying this unit is that when you are in the leadership position or when you are working at a senior position wherein you have the responsibility to manage employees and have the option to delegate tasks, you have authority. In those cases, it is the onus of the person in that authority or in that position to be able to manage what is called the training and development of its staff. And training and development of staff is done or is basically put into place by organizations and by people in those positions, which are basically leading them as teams or acting as supervisors, is primarily done because leaders are interested or managers are interested in ensuring that their staff is productive, their staff is efficient, and also that they are able to have the right skills to be able to accomplish the goals and objectives given. So simple example here would be when you look at an engineering organization, the organization once has recruited different types of engineers. Say let's look at Facebook. Now Facebook, as we know, is an organization which primarily has a lot of its intellectual property as code, because they provide this software as a service. So it's the world's most popular networking service available to I think 1.3, 1.4 billion users. So when you look at that as a concept, here most of the it's engineers which work within the organization on different products and services which Facebook provides, they know how to do coding. So when you have engineers in the organization who work on various projects, it is down to the the manager to ensure that they have the up-to-date skills to be able to perform their job or job roles on a daily basis. So to a certain extent, the managers are responsible for doing performance appraisal. They're also responsible for ensuring that the people that they have recruited in their team have the ability, skills, traits to be able to perform their job role on to the best possible basis, which allows the best code to be developed. The services are then able to be launched on time, and if there are issues or problems which are encountered, then these engineers are able to debug or debug the code, test the code, debug the code, and also resolve these problems. So when we look at the overarching aim of why you want to have the best staff working for you within your team is to ensure that they have the skills, abilities to be able to perform that job well. Now, if I take this out and take it to a bigger context of the organization, similarly, people at the top are more interested in ensuring that their staff or the people that they recruit in the organization are having the right skills, which could be, in this case, case in point of Facebook would be skills which means they can program in languages like Python or Java or Visual C, things like that, to be able to create code. So their aim is to ensure that they have the best people who can manage and lead the teams to be able to achieve the objectives which the CEO or the top management of the organization actually fixes for the year. So when you look at Mark Zuckerberg and you look at Sheryl Sandberg, who's the CEO and the CEO, their aim and objective currently is to look at making Facebook as a platform wherein they discourage fake news. They're able to comply with all the laws and legislation in different countries, because there's a lot of discussion about the role of social media nowadays and how social media can actually propagate fake news or things like that. And that is where they need the right set of managers in the organization to be able to get to achieve some of these objectives. If they do not achieve, then they can be fined by the European Union or by different courts, because they do see that the information that they propagate through that platform of social media and networking, violates certain data protection laws or, laws which are set within the, a particular geography or country. So here the context of understanding the unit is, how do we look at when you work within an organization, how do you help people or help your staff to learn, develop, and pick up skills which are required primarily to exhibit leadership and management functions.
Okay.
So in this unit, what we're also going to look at is, before I get into the discussions for the unit, there are 4 learning outcomes in this particular unit. So we're going to cover this unit in 4 sessions. The first session, primarily for which I've got some slides that I put together, we'll go through these slides. Now, the first session basically talks about understanding. It talks about understanding knowledge and skills which are required in leadership and strategic management. Now, before we get into this learning outcome, we are also going to be looking at understanding some of the key terms. Now, if I look at the name of the unit, it talks about personal development. That is one of the key terms. It talks about leadership. It talks about strategic management. So we are looking at understanding some of these key terms and why they've been put together by ATHE into a particular unit to help us study the importance of training and development within an organization. So let's get straight into it. Now, I have classified these key terms into 3 or 4 slides. Now, when we define leadership, you're basically, if I look at leadership, the literal meaning of leadership is that somebody who's able to inspire people within an organization, or somebody who's able to get people behind them within the organization. That person, he or she exhibits certain types of qualities, and these qualities resonate with the individuals, and that is why you tend to kind of align and follow with that particular person. So you feel that, the things this person is talking about are close to what I believe, and I like to support him, or I like to follow him. So that is what is the quality of leadership, that people who have the ability to be able to motivate, people who have the ability to be able to, sometimes simplify certain, goals and objectives within the organization, people who are able to communicate well, people who are able to, solve problems, people who, at the end of the day, are showing, qualities of integrity or honesty, and people sometimes you will see that they are able to inspire others, will be people who will kind of go into a leadership position, or are having these qualities which basically would allow them to become a leader. So when we look at an example here of, say, somebody like Steve Jobs, he's an iconic figure. Obviously, he's no longer with us. But when we look at Steve Jobs, he was able to inspire a lot of his staff to produce products or services which he felt could revolutionize, how we experience technology. So he always looked out for bringing in products which he felt should simplify, the use of some of the things that we do using technology. And his prime focus on, bringing out products like iPad, iPhone, iMacs, things like that, was primarily looking at providing a great user experience. He wanted the products to be simple. Now, that is a vision that he had set out, but in order to achieve that vision, he also handpicked some of the people within his team who could work closely with him to deliver that vision. So leaders also do not, sometimes you will see, is that they do not do the things themselves, but they are able to pick out people that they need in terms of quality skills which are required for them to be able to work on that. But they are able to inspire them. They are able to give them direction. They are able to, communicate the goals that they want to achieve quite clearly. And they are very good at decision making. So sometimes when you look at people or, people in leadership position, you will understand that these are people which kind of exhibit some of these qualities, which are listed on the slide, things like honesty, integrity, they're able to inspire others. And this is something which defines the trait of what is called leadership. Now, the second term that we want to look at is strategic management. Now, when we know the term management basically looks at, the art of managing things. So when you look at managers within an organization, they are very good at what is called, basically looking at doing day-to-day activities or day-to-day tasks. They are able to start a particular task and finish a particular task. So when you look at the word management is nothing but it's a process of dealing or controlling, things within an organization. So when we look at resources, there are different types: financial, human resources, administrative, infrastructure resources. Now, if you're asked to manage a particular type of resource, say, for example, you're a head of department and you have a number of people working for you within the department, say marketing, and you have various people in marketing, advertising manager, events manager, you have somebody who's managing promotions. You have somebody who's managing, say, for example, printing and publishing, things like that. So if you have 4 or 5 people working within that team and you head that team, your aim as a manager is to primarily ensure that you are able to effectively direct, control, and manage these people to get a certain outcome. So if at the end of the year your goal is to ensure that you're given a certain amount of budget, and that certain amount of budget is required to do promotions, marketing, to create demand in the market for the products which the company sells, you have to effectively utilize that budget. And you know that with these kind of goals that have been given to you at the start of the year by the management, you need to ensure that your team is able to deliver on those goals. And that would mean maximizing spend in terms of money or through promotions to be able to basically get results which are required for the sales teams, the business development teams, customer footfalls, things like that. So management as a process is a process of dealing and controlling some of these resources. As a department head, you are able to manage and supervise your staff to get the jobs done in an effective manner, which allows you to meet a larger goal set by the organization. Now, the moment I heard, say for example, I add this word strategic, when I say strategic management, what we are trying to basically do in that case is, in the case of strategic management, we are looking at adding some of the long-term objectives which the company has formulated. And when we look at those long-term objectives, you are basically looking at, making sure that these objectives to a certain extent are met in the roles and responsibilities that you're doing on a day in, day out basis. So when we look at strategic management in particular, we are looking at, and the word strategic synonymous with something like strategy, and strategy here always means that a company will have a long-term plan, whether it's a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan, 7 year, 10 year plan. They will have some sort of a long-term plan. And in that long-term plan, they will look at studying things like the competitors' activity. They will look at how they are based in the market in terms of their position, what are their products and services, their strengths and weaknesses. And then at some stage, somebody in the management will create a plan, which is a long-term plan. It is a long-term plan which they feel the company needs to follow, because the company needs to go from a position A to a position B or to a position C. And in that case, the path that they take to travel will be done using something called strategic management. So here, strategic management will involve something like a formulation of a strategy or a certain sort of plan. A plan is nothing but a set of activities, and these activities, when implemented, will allow the company to achieve goals and objectives which are set by the top management in the organization. Now, sometimes you will see when I say sometimes, it is always when you see strategic management will have, a couple of components in it. That means strategic management, when a document which basically defines long-term strategy or long-term goals of an organization is created, it will have some key components in it in terms of talking. So the first thing would be, you will normally see that the document has some sort of a clear aim and objective, and it marries into the vision of the organization. So if we look at, say, for example, taking an example of, say, Apple, just sticking to what I've mentioned earlier. Now, this company's long-term vision is to create products or introduce technology in products which simplify and provide the best user experience possible. I have put some statements in, and we'll look at that in a few more slides subsequently. But the idea here is that they have a long-term plan in place, they have a long-term vision in place, and how do we differentiate vision and mission is going to be in the next slide. But strategic management, if we have to understand as a concept, as a term, is primarily related to the field of, I would say, within an organization, it is primarily related to the formulation and implementation of long-term goals for the organization to be able to achieve something. Simple option, a simple example here that I will give you is that if you look at Tesco within the UK, as an example, Tesco every year formulates a plan. Their plan is to increase profits. Their plan is to increase revenue. Their plan is to increase, the number of footfalls coming into the store. And this plan, which is created, is an annual strategic plan. And this annual strategic plan is then, broken down into what you call the day-to-day roles and responsibilities of staff working within the organization. So when you look at the 4,500 odd Tesco stores in the UK, and you look at 250,000 people working within the organization, they do not have an overarching plan in, they do not work towards a plan that the turnover of the company has to increase by 5%. So from 62 billion, it has to go to 65 billion. No, their plan is broken down. This long-term strategic plan, which is the annual plan, is broken down into smaller micro goals and objectives, which at ground level will actually relate to the day-to-day activities which the employees perform. So it is nothing but a top-down plan which allows each and every individual to execute a set of responsibilities so that their execution of these responsibilities contributes towards the fulfillment of certain smaller goals and objectives at the individual level, at the department level, at the strategic business unit level, and overall at the company level. And that process through which this is achieved and management puts this in place is nothing but strategic management. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. The next term that we want to understand primarily is, vision. And what is mission? So when we look at vision, most companies have some sort of a tagline or a brand tagline. So when you look at a tagline or, when you look at a certain set of words which basically are written under the company's name or, for example, under their logo, what we do feel is that those are words which kind of generally define what the company stands for in the long term. So if I look at taking an example of, a few organizations which are put together in the speaker notes, is that if you look at Starbucks, or if you look at Amazon, for example, Amazon is a good example because most of us buy, goods and products and services today more or less on a daily basis, or, you order at a click of a button through your phone, you order or buy a lot of services. Now, what is the long-term goal of Amazon? When I say vision, it is like a very long-term goal. So when I look at long-term goal of Amazon, long-term goal or vision of Amazon is they've specified that in their, annual journal report. They write it in their, marketing collaterals. And this is what defines the ethos of the company, why the company was created. Now, this vision has changed over the years from the time Amazon was launched by Jeff Bezos, in the early 1990s. But having said that, the vision of the company has more or less changed to reflect how the organization is growing now in the modern day times. So their vision is to be the most customer-centric company in the world. They want to be the most customer-centric company in the world, and they want to build a place where people can come and find, they can buy, discover anything online. So their main aim, of the company's existence is to look at ensuring that anything which, organizations, businesses sell, they should be able to provide that under their banner, and which allows consumers to buy these products and services from Amazon online. Now, this vision, so if I look at this particular stuff, which is vision, this is something which is long term. This is something which defines, where the company is headed for in the future. So when I say future, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. You look at organizations like Unilever, Procter and Gamble. These are very large, fast-moving consumer good organizations which have hundreds and hundreds of products. So what they've done over the years is the vision of the company has been to provide products and services which you and me use on a day-to-day basis within our household. So you use things like a toothpaste, a detergent powder, a dishwasher tablet. You look at, all the other ingredients on the grocery side. For example, I have baked beans and stuff. All these products are created by these companies. Now, their long-term vision is that they want to be able to keep providing these products and services so that, they are able to inherit more customers. And obviously, as a business, because they're private companies, they want to make more profits. So when we look at vision and mission, why is it important? A vision is what describes that the company is going to try and achieve in the future. You look at Tesla, for example. Tesla is looking at creating electric vehicles, and they want to not just create an electric vehicle, but they want to create the best electric vehicle in terms of looks, beauty, speed, and also the driving experience. And they are going to produce, or they are in the process of producing cars which are in the premium category. There are lots of other electric vehicles, but the way they are trying to describe and differentiate their product from other vehicle producers like Toyota, Nissan, they have lots of companies now who are producing electric vehicles, but they want their vehicles to be clearly differentiated from the rest of the lot because they want them to be the best in terms of speed, experience, and also what they initially started off by saying was that the electric vehicles does not mean that these vehicles cannot be, fast or, beautiful. So what Tesla has done is their long-term vision is to create, a vision wherein they want to provide electric cars, but these electric cars, would have no compromise as far as when you look at, design, innovation, functions, features, functionality. So vision is something which is long-term. Now, how does an organization look at creating look at basically narrowing down the long-term vision into something of a mission, which is nothing but how do they translate this into day-to-day activities of what it makes, when I say, something which is going to be meaningful to people on a day-to-day basis. So when I look at, the importance of mission, what we do get to see is that this is something, a person, a department, or, a particular division within the business would be given a responsibility of, within a group of people, whatever it is, to make sure that they're able to deliver on that long-term vision. So shorter objectives to be accomplished would be defined in something called mission statements. Longer objectives would be defined in something called a vision statement. A mission statement or mission of the company would be to create profits on a yearly basis or an annual basis. They want to return or create products and services which are in demand. But the long-term vision would be to have products and services which are clearly meeting what the company stands for. So you see the difference between the two?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, after understanding this particular concept, so I put down, what is the Amazon's vision and mission. Now here, what they want to primarily be known as is that they want to be the most customer-centric company in the world. That means they don't use world as a definition. They say Earth's most customer-centric company. So the idea here is they want to build a marketplace online which allows the customers to come and shop and buy everything which is available in stores, or every sort of products and services which are available in the brick and mortar model right now, which is retail stores. So they want to provide those services online. Now, in the case of Amazon, this is their vision, which is long term. But when the business started off, they started off as a bookstore. When Jeff Bezos started the business, he initially started with just, making books available to readers online. And as and when, his finances improved, the company started to get traction, get more customers. The vision has now, kind of got enlarged, and it now includes a lot more products and services which they are able to provide. I think the last time that I looked at searching on Google to find out how many types of products and services, Amazon provides, it was in the region of about 23 million types of products and services which it provides, individual products and services. So if you see from where he started off in the humble beginnings of providing a bookstore online to today, what Amazon provides is 23 different types of products, million types of products. So if I count, say, a t-shirt, a type of shoe, there are different categories. Obviously, they've created categorization over the years to make product discovery easy, and the grouping of products and services happen on the portal. But if I look at individual SKUs or items, they have those many types of products listed which the customers can look at buying, and not just from one brand, but multiple brands. So, over the years, the business has expanded. So the vision has always been to provide products and services online. And this vision has led to the mission of Amazon being that every year they add lots of products, every month, every week, they add lots of products, and they ensure that these products or services which are added are in demand. And their aim is also to provide them at a cost which is affordable to consumers. At the same time, they want to increase business, and obviously get more turnover, make more profit and things like that. So I think the last time I looked at the turnover of Amazon, if we do a quick search, turnover of Amazon, I think, is in the region of $260 billion.
Oh.
If I look at how big that company has become globally, it is $232 billion in 2018 in terms of revenue. Right? So it is not difficult to understand that this, which is a mission or essentially a vision which he started off. Now, Jeff Bezos is also the world's richest man. He never could have envisaged that this is something that he wanted to achieve, but because the long-term aim, or I would say, the idea that he had in mind has got translated into something which he thought of initially, is to make more and more products online. As internet spread, as the company's operations have spread, as more and more consumers have, as the technology has enabled more and more consumers to go online, what is happening is Amazon's business is continuously increasing. So when we look at, the basic concepts of why we want to understand leadership and management, the idea is if you break down these 3-4 key terms, leadership, strategic management, we look at organization, vision and mission, we are able to understand that why this is important, because leaders or people who think long term are able to come up with these ideas which sometimes seems very crazy in the initial outset, but at some stage these ideas, have to be translated into something called, real actions. And these ideas, when they are translated into real actions, require a team of managers, team of leaders to be able to achieve that. Because somebody who's the chief executive or somebody who starts off at the company as a founder has an idea in mind, but the idea in terms of a seed needs to be planted with a number of people that he looks at hiring, creating a team with, and these people then kind of, translate that vision of what he thinks would be, the case into what is called the tangible products and services.
Okay.
Now, having said that, let's look at very briefly understanding and going into a few slides before we go into the looking at the analysis of what leadership and strategic management would be when we look at how they help in achieving the organization vision and the strategy. Now, now these three terms. So what is the purpose of having a vision statement? For us, to give you a very small example, you see our logo. And if you see our logo, what we have is our name of the company. But under that, we have put, a strapline or a tagline, as you call it. And that says education empowers lives. Now, the reason why we've kept a very generic line or a strapline is to say that, okay, if you're able to deliver education, make it affordable, accessible. Now, when I say education empowers life. Now, what I need to do is, this is like a statement I've made. Okay, it's a universal fact. If you have knowledge, if you have skill, if you've acquired knowledge, whatever way you call it, if you have the knowledge, then you are able to make informed decisions. If you have knowledge, you're able to understand things better. If you have knowledge, you can differentiate right from wrong. Various definitions you can look at. But when I say education empowers life, it's a very generic statement which everybody can relate to. And this statement kind of signifies that what we want to do is make sure that people, when they come in and study with us, the education they gain actually empowers them to achieve their goals and objectives. Now, once this strapline is done away with, if I have to explain this strapline, the strapline is a vision. That means what we do see long term is that if people are empowered with education, they have knowledge, they are able to make more informed decisions, and they can better their lifestyle or their, for example, get better jobs, and, it enables a better lifestyle. Now, in order to explain this strapline, what I have to do is I have to create supporting statements. And these supporting statements could be statements which either are linked to the mission of the company, or these supporting statements will also, to a certain extent, highlight how this is going to be delivered. How is this vision going to be possible? So when I say education empowers life, we want to say that we want to make education accessible, affordable. But when I say accessible and affordable, we are using online medium as a technology to make this available. So as internet grows, as more and more people are now, working, they do not want to leave a full-time job and get into education or full-time education. But what they want to be able to do is study online. And because the infrastructure, technology, resources are now available to study online, what we want to be able to do is make that difference by making it accessible and affordable. So this explanation of the strapline translates into what is called the mission of the company. So if I say education empowers life, that is overarching, objective of the organization from a long-term perspective. That means we do feel genuinely education can change people's life. It can empower you to make decisions, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, if I have to explain this in much more detail, which is which is something which people can relate to on a day-to-day basis, is that, okay, I know there are lots of other providers which provide education, and education can empower lives, because if you get the right knowledge, right skills, you are able to get a better job, and it improves this and that. But how does it help me? So the expansion of that vision statement into smaller objectives which people can relate to would be defined as something called mission. So things like making it accessible and affordable. Now, if you do a university program, you do a similar course from a university, that course might cost you £10,000, but we are making it accessible and affordable by providing this online, and by providing it at a lower cost of £1,500, which is 1/5 or 1/6 the cost of what you pay to a university. Now, this makes sense and resonates with the individuals, because they understand that, okay, I'm able to save money, I'm able to save time, I can look at doing qualification at a time which is suiting my purpose, and this allows me to, gain a qualification, but at the same time continue to work and not spend, a lot of money to gain the same qualification elsewhere. Now, this expansion of the vision statement, or the strapline that we have, into smaller statements, or minor, I should not say minor, but smaller statements which are able to, which individuals are able to relate to, would be called something called mission of the company, because those are more tangible, more achievable statements, and you see them, kind of working their way to achieving that long-term objectives on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, 6-monthly, and annual basis. So if you look at a vision statement normally is a kind of a strapline which is defining the mission or the existence of the company in a few words. It is like a bit of a declaration to say that, okay, we want to be the world's most customer-centric company. But what does that mean to you? It doesn't mean anything to a person on the street, or sometimes to an individual, because your aim and objective is something different. I would say, okay, you could be the world's most customer-centric company, but provided I get those products and services cheaper than any other store or any other place that I buy from. So then it makes sense, and that customer then comes to Amazon to buy that product. So when we look at that, this is like a declaration or a very high-end statement which defines the existence of the company. Now, when we marry the word strategy with vision, what do we want to do in that? We want to understand that vision is a goal. It's a very long-term goal. Now, strategy is something which is a set of activities, plan, which a company puts in place to be able to achieve that long-term goal. So a vision is a goal, and a strategy, when you look at, is the set of activities that we are able to put together to be able to achieve that long-term goal. And at some stage, the companies, when they reach that goal, when they finish that journey, they have to reorient, or, for example, reclassify and make another, maybe for another 20, 30 years, they define another set of vision which says that, okay, this is what will define me or define the company in the 21st century. So you see a lot of organizations which were primarily, after the World War II era, a lot of industrialization took place, and people started working in factories. A lot of these companies had different sorts of visions. But if the companies have survived the last 50, 60 years and they're still running, some of the organizations have reoriented themselves. They've rewritten the mission statement or the vision statement because they want it to be aligned with the 21st century or the modern day consumer. Okay. Now, if I just very briefly get into, relating these terms. So the fundamental reason when you look at, vision and strategy coming together, when people use that together, is to primarily look at aligning what the company stands for to achieve in long term, but they want to create a set of activities which will allow them to achieve that long-term vision. So that is where you will see a combination of vision, mission, strategy always coming in place. A simple example that I would give you to highlight this point would be when you look at, let's pick up a very small business. When you look at, say, a local grocery store, let's look at Tesco, for example. You look at those, the more modern version of the Tesco Extra stores. Now, in that, their clear aim is to ensure that they maximize customer footfall, because the head office is doing promotions, they're able to serve more customers, and they want to, say, reduce on pilferage, or goods which primarily are going to the landfill. So what the store does at the end of the day is the general manager in the store has the decision-making authority to be able to say if products are going to expire, then they are able to reduce down the price to be able to sell as much inventory as possible, which reduces waste going to landfills, but also at the same point in time helps reduces loss at the store, because if they allow it to stay on the shelf with reducing prices or do not give offers, sometimes you will see that in any case that inventory is going to be utilized or has to be done away with, because it is not it is going to go, say for example, it is something which will become unusable. But what they tend to do is they tend to reduce these prices down so that it prompts even at a reduced price sale of these products, and it helps minimize losses. So when you see this kind of an action happening, what is happening in the background, if you look at it, take a step back and look at it, is that the general manager in the store has put a strategy in place, and this is not something which he takes as an ad hoc decision, but this is a strategy now across all stores, because what the head office does is they say, okay, if the inventory is 3 days or 4 days to expire, like milk or grocery products that you look at, you can reduce the price down, mark the price down by 20%. On the second day, you mark it down by 50%. On the third day, you do basically a price wherein, it allows customers to take the inventory, or, say, for example, when you look at some of the items. And this as a set of activities, because it is defined in the organization's day-to-day functioning, becomes nothing but strategy. Because it is not a one-off thing that the company does. It is not a one-off thing which one of the store does, but this is something which is implemented across the 4,500 stores in order to ensure that the losses are minimized, in order to ensure the inventory going to landfill is reduced, and in order to ensure that, for the greater good of, say, environment, when we look at corporate social responsibility, those kind of things, the organization is seen to be, implementing a kind of a plan which allows reduction of or wastage of allows reduction in the wastage of food and material. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. So the strategy is basically brings the current state mission into vision. It's a roadmap. It's a path.
That is correct. Yes.
All
So,
right, okay.
short, the idea is that yes, it allows you to translate the long-term goal of the company into a short-term plan by using or defining a series of activities which can be done on a day in, day out basis.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Now, when we look at, so let me do one of the slides wherein in this slide where you see is a link between the three. And the reason why we want to see this link before we start getting into the, assessment criteria, why leadership is important in management. This is a slide which basically explains what is the link between the, 4 key parts. So when you look at vision, why the organization was set up, or what was the ethos by which the organization was set up, how is that vision, long-term vision or long-term goal of the company, translated into smaller term goals which are tangible, achievable, or smart objectives. That is called mission. And then when we look at the 2 other side of things which are important in this is how does the company go out and achieve that, goals set, or achieve those, implement those, main objectives which has been set. They look at a strategy document, which is a document which looks at detailing out the set of activities which need to be done in order to realize that goal. And you look at corporate objectives, which are basically set from a management perspective, and they are normally set as SMART objectives because these objectives have to mean something to a particular individual within the organization. So for me, when the CEO says, for example, that we need to double our turnover this year, and if I work in one of the stores, may not translate into anything for me, but just like a statement saying that, okay, we need to double our turnover. But how does that overarching statement translate into my goal on a day-to-day functioning is something which is then done by the HR, the department head, your supervisor, your manager, who translates the long-term, management objective of it's not long-term, when I say annual objective of the management to double in the turnover into objectives which you will achieve, and in turn they will fulfill some of that objective which the company wants to look at. And those objectives are corporate objectives which are set, and they are normally set using something called SMART. That means they are specific to me. They are something which are measurable at the end of the year, because I cannot contribute to the doubling of the turnover of Tesco, because if I work within a particular store, my role would be to look at managing store operations or, doing a particular activity within that store. But how will my work on a day-to-day basis contribute to achieving the overall objective? That means my objectives have to be set specifically, that I can reduce pilferage, or I can reduce, I can serve more customers, and that would allow more revenue to be brought in. So when you look at the vision, the mission, the strategy, and the objectives, there is a close tie-up between them, and this is where the company, the board, the management keeps working towards that. Somebody comes up when in the management they come up with certain objectives that they have to achieve. They have to be translated down into sort of series of activities, and these activities have to be specific to individuals working within the organization, so that when they achieve those objectives, they end up achieving certain larger objectives for the department, larger objectives for the company, and overall this leads to the achievement of the objective set by the management annually.
Okay.
Now, a case in point that I've taken here is, as an example, is of Starbucks. Now, Starbucks has, over the years, the business has become quite big. They started off, offering coffee initially, but they've added a lot of products, which basically now are available from Starbucks. So they have different types of drinks, coffee, snacks, things like that. Now, here, their main objectives, when I look at mission, is actually set using stakeholders. So what are stakeholders? People who have vested interest within the organization. And there could be different type of stakeholders. You could have customers, which is the most important because they buy your products and services. You have employees, you have investors, and in some cases you also have stakeholders which involve government, because you are adhering to policies, legislation, law of a particular country or a geography. And now you also include objectives which are, included within the workings of large multinational organizations, things like CSR, corporate social responsibility. You look at, corporate governance. You look at, environmental friendliness. You look at going green. So these are other objectives which, the companies also fulfill, because they're related to certain type of stakeholders and their demands in terms of how they expect the company or operations to be performed. So when we look at this example of Starbucks, what I want to be able to do in this case is explain how you start with the mission statement, who we are, where we are, what do we do, what kind of products and services we provide. That translates into something related to, why does the company stand? What are the base, the core essence of where does the company's products and services come from? What is the ethos of the company's, existence? And that then between the two, vision and mission, translate into the set of activities, and those set of activities relate to something called goals and objectives, which people understand, employees understand, and they work on a day-to-day basis with. So some of the, when we look at the guiding principles of what the Starbucks stands for is, something like this. They say we want to provide a great environment, for people to work within the company. They want to embrace diversity. That means they have now operations in lots of countries. And because they have operation in lots of countries, what they want to be able to do is they have multicultural workforce. They have diversity within the organization. So they want to ensure that there is equality and the company treats them fairly. They want to provide higher standards of excellence in terms of when they buy material from coffee bean manufacturers or, farmers in particular. They want to show that, there is a fair trade. Fair trade as a concept, as a term originated from when you look at suppliers and you look at the supply chain, a lot of people, a lot of companies which are buying these raw material from, supply chains, they basically look at, ensuring that they are paying them a fair price for the produce or, the raw material they're buying from them. And similarly, they have some of these statements. Now, when we look at that, what we want to be able to understand is these are guiding principles on which Starbucks as a company is based on. And these principles or values, as we call them, are basically nothing but vision and mission of the company. So they want to ensure that the key stakeholders, employees, when I say great environment for work, that means they are referring to employees. When they look at equality and diversity, they want to embrace that. That is again related to employees. When they look at higher standards of excellence for purchasing, that means they are wanting to work fairly with their suppliers, their partners, or the supply chain partners, and give them a fair price when they procure, products and services from them. When they look at develop enthusiastically satisfied customers, one of the key stakeholders they want to serve all this is customers who buy their products and services. And then some of the other aspects of stakeholders could be things like they want to contribute positively towards communities and environment, which shows that they want to comply with legislation, they want to comply with the environmental laws and things like that, which allows them to be seen as a company which is environmentally friendly, consumer friendly, and also friendly towards staff and people who work within a particular geography, because they follow guidelines and law and legislation set for labor laws within a country when they employ people. And last but not the least, the most important part after customers in terms of their stakeholders is shareholders. So they want to look at making profitable business so that at the end of the year, dividends could be declared and stakeholders, shareholders who own the shares of the company are also aptly rewarded because they are able to, see dividends on shares that they purchase, and they see the company business or company as a business growing. Is that okay? So this link, when you see this particular chart, is important when we look at recruitment and selection within the organization, and we look at why people bring best, why when companies hire, they try to hire the best possible people or the talent to work within a particular role. And that is where, again, we will go back to the concept of something called leadership and management, and why is it important?
Yeah.
Now, having said that, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go through all the slides, but we're going to quickly now look at doing one or two things to understand what are your leadership qualities and how would you do an audit to look at understanding your own leadership and what is your management style. So let me open two templates which I'm going to provide later just after this session in terms of you to fill in, because they will also be classed into something called the assessment criteria, as far as the tasks are concerned. So there are two bits that I'm going to open. One is primarily self-assessment tool, which is primarily looking at understanding what kind of leadership style you have, right? So this is the document that I'm going to send after the session, and this document, parts of this we will include into when you do your own assignment. So here, when I talk about analyze your knowledge and skills for leadership and strategic development, this is one of the documents which is going to be used to cover that task. So it gives there's a bit of a template here, and the template is you have to through this template do your self-assessment, and the idea here is we want to understand what, and you have to on a scale of 1 to 6, and there are various parts to this template wherein once you go through this, you'll be able to kind of towards the end pinpoint your leadership style and management style that you have related to how, when you're working within teams, when you're working given a chance, when you work within an organization, what kind of style of leadership or management would you exhibit. Is that okay?
Yeah. This skills audit.
Sorry,
this skills audit template, is it for the LO3 or LO1?
Oh, this is primarily for LO1.
LO1, okay.
LO1, yeah.
Because I have seen if you go to LO3, I think I've seen something like there carry out an audit of own personal leadership.
Yes. So this will be cross-referenced into something called 3.2 as well. But for 3.2, I'm going to give you a skills audit template, which is going to be slightly different to understanding, skills audit related to, the leadership and management. Because here at this task, we are going to be looking at personal leadership, personal audit of skills. But in this task, what we are looking at is, in general, understanding how organizations use a template to audit leadership and management skills within within a particular individual or a department or within an organization.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So
thank you.
when I do personal skills audit, if I just give you a template which I also have, and that personal skills audit template is going to be, more focused on things which are related to your own self, things which are related to, primarily looking at things like time management, primarily looking at things like, your main day-to-day functionings in terms of your skills. So you might define IT skills, English skills, you might define things which are related to, your personality, and that is what we are going to cover in that.
Okay.
So we'll come to that in a minute, but this particular template is what I would suggest that you need to look at so that you are able to fill this in and understand, why this template is used as an effective tool. There are loads of different templates, but this is one that we picked up, and this is a guide to enable you to understand how you can reflect as a leader or manager in managing your own overall effectiveness, in terms of understanding what drives you, and what are the skills and qualities that you have when you look at, leadership and management. Now, there is another small template, which the way I would see it is that when we look at doing or creating something called a personal development plan, PDP, or we have to do our own audit first. We have to do an audit through the skills route. We have to do an audit through our SWOT, and that, once that is done, primarily allows us to, get into something called, that's one I'm referring to, and that's the one that will allow you to primarily look at, doing your own audit. So here, this is a template that I've created, and this is something which is extracted from, Exeter University. What they have done is, in this template, you have to rank yourself between 1 and 4, and the basic skills that you are ranking yourself is on management. How do you manage learning? How do you look at problem solving? You look at communication. These are then personal skills, working with others, data handling. And then, to a certain extent, what I also want to look at is how would you do your SWOT analysis? And then this would be utilized when you do your audit and your SWOT. You will then look at basically relating it to your type of leadership and management skills. And towards the end, what we're going to do is develop this into some sort of a plan that how do you develop leadership? How do you develop management skills? And that is done by creating a working document called a personal development plan. And that working document allows you to keep updating things, writing down smaller objectives, defining resources, defining a timeline. And when you achieve it, you move on, you add further, goals and targets to it. So this is something that we will look at in primarily in learning outcome, But in the first one, what we also want to now look at is, by these two templates, look at understanding, what kind of skills you have and what kind of skills you need. And we are going to relate this to the theoretical aspect of, why the vision and mission is important, and how you can relate the leadership and management skills to, an organizational strategy. So some of the slides that we talk about, what I've done now is obviously group them up into, individual assessment criteria. So the second one talks about contribution factors towards this. So what I've started off with is a bit of a differentiation between what is the difference between leadership and management. So we've defined some concepts here, and this table kind of looks at, taking the individual components in, the key terms in, like vision, mission, strategy, organizational strategy, into, and then creating a differentiation between what is leadership and management. So leaders think long-term, managers think, on a day-to-day basis. You will see leaders are focused on long-term goals, or they look at, defining the direction of the company. Managers are more focused on achieving day-to-day goals, or, achieving certain objectives which have been set. Leaders would typically look at mission statement, but they look at creating it. Managers would be more focused on delivering that. So they break it down into a set of activities which are achievable, and those set of activities are then achievable within their team structures, departments, and things like that. So this has been defined in this particular bit. Now, when we look at a few slides I put together on, difference between managers and leaders. So if I come on that, how do we relate, what aspect of vision relates to management, and what action of vision relates to leadership. So this has also been defined, in tables here. And what I've tried to do is primarily, give you a bit of a difference between when we look at different departments, how they, look at creating a differentiation between the two. So when I look at networking events, you will normally see a lot of leaders going into networking events as against managers. But when you see training, seminars, conferences, you will see most managers will go to those events as against leaders, because it is about increasing productivities. It is about learning best practices. It is about, understanding how the gap areas could be, picked up, and corrective action plans could be put into place. So that is where you will see, when you have conferences, seminars, training events, you see managers going to those events. But when you see networking events, professional body events, when you see, events which are related to, in term understanding the market, where the market is going, you will see leaders going into those events. So that is where the differentiation is when you look at leadership and management. Then towards the end, the merit tasks ask you to justify the type of, we know what type of skills leaders require, because we'll go through, you've gone through that in terms of the differentiation, in terms of the tables. But here the idea would be to understand, how do you rank these skills, and are some of these skills more important when we look at leadership and management roles? And what I've done in that table is basically, put these 6 skills which we think, as per research over the years has been, more or less fixed, that these are the 6 skills which people have which are in leadership position. So they're able to think strategically, they plan quite well, they're able to manage people. That is how people follow them or align with them to understand the goals and then work on them. Leaders are also required when they have a characteristic called bringing in change within the company. So if the company has been making loss, or if the market has changed, they want to reorient the company. And here I normally give an example of Michael Dell. If you look at Dell, was a clear leader in the market as far as PCs are concerned. But when cloud computing and related products started to come in after the iPhone was introduced, everything started moving to cloud. So Michael Dell came back into the company, took the company private, and what he did was he introduced change within the company to say that, okay, some of the products that we are selling, PCs, because PC up till I would say the 2009, 2007, 2009, PC was the central product to access the internet. But once the smartphones market started to increase, tablets started to come in, PC became one of the devices to access the internet. But there are loads of other devices which came out, which are smartphones in particular, tablets in particular. And when he came back, he took the company private, he reoriented the product things within Dell, and changed the company focus to also focus on, cloud-based services or products and services which they did not have. So they have an ability to be able to bring change into the organization. And if that change was not brought in, Dell would not survive. There are lots of companies, like if you see IBM, they've sold off the PC business to Lenovo. You see Hewlett Packard, they are concentrating mostly on, now storage, cloud, data management, and printing side of business. But PC side of business has shrunk for them drastically. So if they do not bring change, or leaders in the organization are not able to see the trends of the market, read the trends of the market, understand where the market is going, how the consumer demand is shaping up, they are not effectively able to provide that leadership which is required for the organization to survive, reorient their production services. So change management is one of the important skills which we see within leaders which are there. And then what we need to be able to do is rank these skills. Why do we rank these skills? Because at some stage, some of these skills are more important as compared to some of the other, because not every organization will require change, or not every organization would require, some sort of, say, planning and delivery change in the short term. So we also look at ranking of some of these skills to be able to say that, okay, these skills are required to be more successful for the achievement of organizational goals, and that's why a bit of brief ranking, has been done of the 6 skills that we've covered here, and that would match up to basically looking at, the distinction task. Now, towards the end, I know this session has been a bit longer, but towards the end, what I've put together is a bit of a video which I see explains, what is the difference between, operation and strategy, and why do we think, operations versus strategy we need to understand. And this is directly related to, what is the distinction task. So when we look at this particular video, it's a 5 or a 7 minute video which you can watch offline, will clearly highlight how leadership function functions when we look at operations, and how, or let's put it this way, how management function is more aligned to operations, and how leadership function is more aligned towards strategy. And it is vital for us to understand this difference between leadership and management and skills required when we study operations versus strategy. So it's a good video to basically kind of summarize why do we see that the skills required to work from a management operations perspective is different from when we look at leadership skills required for strategic purposes to achieve objectives within the organization.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that. And this session, I'm going to spend, this copy of the presentation is already on the learner management system. But what I'm going to do is primarily there are two handouts which are there, which is one talking about the link between vision, mission, and strategy. So this document I've used, to basically bring across a few important points into, the slides that I've done. And the other document which is there, which is basically talking about, the skills audit. There are a few templates that I've given up here, but what I'm going to do is add this leadership, skills audit template on this side, and then you can access it from there to do an audit on your site for whether what kind of leadership style or management style you have.
Oh, I'm sorry, Raman. The template you're on now, you're scrolling through now. Is that on the learning? Is that on the system?
Yes, I'm going to put that on the system right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So I'm going to put that, and this personal skills audit template is already there, which is 3D1. I'm going to put the other one, which is the skills, leadership tool template.
Yeah.
Which is now I put it in, and I'm going to track this under learning outcome 1.
Okay. So that will be for the LO1.
LO1, yes.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Is that okay? Any other questions on the session today, Boris?
Not now, but when I'm doing the task, I might have some questions. Is it all right if I email you if I have some questions?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. No problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
Good stuff. No, Joseph is muted. Joseph, I don't know whether you're able to hear us, but I'm going to try and send you the copy of the recording just after the session. And if you have any questions, feel free to obviously send them over. So we can discuss. Okay, that's great. That's great. Thanks for the confirmation. Any questions, Joseph? Let me just stop recording.
All right.
So what I can also do is, Boris, I'm going to ask him if I can end the session, and then you can ask me questions via email.
Okay, by email.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I have any questions, I ask you.
You can drop